Bluefish, Chapter 4. Today we start individual conferences, said Mr. McQueen in reading. When I call your name, bring your book into my office and we'll discuss. He called Heather first. Travis glanced over at Velveeta. She was staring at the cover of a book and playing with the end of her scarf. This one was an October maple blast of red, orange, and yellow. Travis traced his finger around the black paw of the fox on the cover of his book. They made such small, neat tracks, those fox paws. One day last winter, he'd followed fox tracks in a new snow and spent all morning tromping circles around the woods and swamp, over brush and under barbed wire, until he ended up in a sweat more than 3 miles from home. He never did find a foxhole. He opened his notebook and drew fox prints from the upper left to lower right corner of the paper. Then he made some rabbit tracks on the other side of the page. Mr. Roberts? Travis grabbed the fox book and walked to the front of the classroom. He stepped through the office doorway. Stacks and gangs of books and magazines leaned in from every wall, shrinking the small room down to nothing. Have a seat, McQueen settled behind the desk. The pile of books at Travis's feet crowded his legs, making him sit slightly sideways. If all the books in the room jumped him at once, they'd bury him. It would take days to punch his way up through the covers and the pages. Let's see the book. Travis handed him the fox. Why did you choose this one? Travis shrugged. Do you like foxes? McQueen held the book up, tapping the cover. Travis nodded. The cover of that book was the most open space in the room. Rolling snowy fields and distant pines against a gray winter sky. You ever see one in the wild? Travis nodded again, remembering the fox pups he'd watched in June. The way they'd rolled and dodged as they wrestled, and that one who'd jumped straight up like a little furry firecracker. What was it like? Did you see it up close? Pups last summer, Travis said. They were cute. Lucky, McQueen popped his eyes open. Not many people get to see that, but you're good at being quiet, blending in. Do you spend a lot of time in the woods? Used to, at our old place. You miss it? McQueen flipped through the pages. Yeah. Well, if it's woods you'd like, you picked the right book. Keljard is terrific with outdoor and animal stories. Beautiful. I mean, listen to this. Chapter 1, The Raider. It was a night so dark that only the unwise, the very young, or the desperately hungry ventured far from the thickets, swamps, and burrows where wild things find shelter in times of stress. McQueen continued to read in his deep, rumbling voice, and Travis sat back in his chair. McQueen's voice brought a starless winter swamp night to life, with rattling leaves and the movement of a fox through the snow. Travis closed his eyes, shutting out the crowd of books, breathing in the cold, clean air. McQueen stopped reading and Travis opened his eyes. The swamp disappeared. Nice writing, isn't it? The mass of books leaned in from the shelves again, waiting to hear what Travis would say. How far have you gotten? McQueen tapped the cover. Not very. Anytime you want to talk about it, let me know. Or if you need any help with anything. Okay, Travis stood and reached for the doorknob. Some nice line drawings at the start of each chapter, McQueen said. Funny how a little thing like that can add to a book. Travis took the book from McQueen and went back to his desk. He spent the rest of the period paging through and looking at the sketches. The second chapter had a drawing of a hound that looked just like Roscoe. Floppy jaws, skinny tail, and ribs showing. He wished McQueen would have read more. The bell rang and Travis headed for lunch, wondering if Velveeta would sit with him again. Returning the shoe was good enough for 2 days, but probably not 3. He almost knocked into Bradley Whistler, coming around the corner into the lunchroom. Hey, Travis. Travis stopped short. Thanks for my shoe the other day. Sure. Bradley stood there looking up at him as if he had something else to say, but Travis didn't know what he could be. Bradley was a smart kid, for real. He had his hand up all the time with the right answer or another question, and he went over to the high school for math. Well, anyway, thanks. See you around. Travis nodded and Bradley went to sit with a group of guys. Travis got in line and loaded up his tray. When he came out, Velveeta was half standing at the back table, and she waved him over. "Hey, why are you smiling?" she said as he set his tray on the table. "I have not said anything funny yet." "That means you're thinking something funny and not letting me in on it. Not fair, Mr. Confidential Comedy Man. Come on, share." Travis shook his head, still smiling. "Maybe you're thinking how beautiful I am, and you're too shy to say. Hey, look, you're blushing. Is that it? You're filled with passion for Velveeta?" "Shh," hissed Travis, although no one was paying any attention. "Interaction, you're actually in there." The girl at the end of the table looked up from her book. "Don't worry, rural RoboCop," Velveeta lowered her voice. "I won't tell anyone. Unless you keep stonewalling me. If you don't start talking soon, I'll tell everyone you're madly in love with me and you pay me $20 every time I sit with you at lunch. It's my lunchroom prostitution scheme." Travis's face burned hot red. Velveeta sat back and drummed her fingers on the table, watching until his skin was about to explode off his skull. "Fine," she said. "Keep your funny thoughts to yourself, but don't keep them too long or I'll get hurt feelings. Hey, you were in there with McQueen for a long time. Did he hypnotize you?" "What do you mean, hypnotize?" "McQueen and his hypno eyes. Don't tell me you didn't notice. You ever see The Jungle Book, old Disney animation? No? You got something against Disney? Anyways, there's this python, and he hypnotizes his prey by staring into their eyes and swaying back and forth and singing, 'Trust in me.' That's McQueen all the way." As usual, Velveeta polished off everything on her tray in a hurry. When he looked up, she was staring at his brownie. Maybe she sat with him to get the extra dessert. Was he supposed to give up half his dessert every day? "So tell me one of your still water running deep thoughts," said Velveeta. "I don't have any," said Travis. "Okay, then give me a shallow one." "I like your scarf." That popped out all on its own before Travis could reel it back. Velveeta's head jerked, as if his words had leapt across the table and slapped her. She blinked a couple of times, then pushed away from the table and walked off without another look at his brownie. Velveeta on Friday. I had a theory that Travis didn't talk because he's dumb as a post. As of today, I'm trashing that theory. I brought the scarves back over here yesterday. You never know when the madre is going to decide she needs a rag to wipe up spilled beer or something. I don't want her touching them. They're mine. They're all shimmery and soft and old lady looking, and they go perfect with my gray hoodie. Did you give them to me because you knew you were about to leave? If so, you should have told me so I wouldn't have been such a shock. Does being dead mean that you don't miss Janet anymore? Your wedding album is still on the kitchen table. I haven't moved anything. I remember that time you said, "Velveeta, you may be full of baloney, but you are a realist." I wasn't sure what you meant. Now I know. Dead is dead is dead. You're not watching me. You won't ever read this. I never talk to anyone else like this. If I don't write it to you, I'll stop thinking this way, and I'll turn into whoever I want. Whoever I would be if there'd never been a Calvin. I can't even think about how horrible that would be. I can barely even think about tomorrow with no Calvin, or tomorrow after that. The madre saw me coming out of here yesterday. It freaked her out. She said it's creepy that I hang out in your trailer, but she said that even when you weren't dead, just old,